What's up, guys and girls? It's good to see you today on the Speakensee Show. I ask you like and subscribe and click that notification button so when I get information out, you can get information in. Man, that sun is bright. That is blinding. Gosh. Fix that. I'll be right back. Don't let the sun go down on me, yeah. Although I search myself, there's always someone else I see. Not without a fragment of your heart to won't be free. No. Okay, now that that sun is gone, guys, I just want to say you are here because you're looking to get some money for your business. We're looking at that $14 billion hard-hit small business grant for all small businesses, regardless of size, location. Nope, size matters. It does. But 200 people or less to apply for this grant in your business. 200 people or less, so proprietors can get it, general contractors can get it. Basically, any business that is out there. $14 billion, $14 billion, that's what? There's 1,000 million and a billion, so that's 140,000 million. Well, why did you just say 140,000 million? Because it's easier to say $14 billion, which is 140,000 million dollars in grants to go out there to your small businesses. So we're going to dive into the codes, the HR 3807, to give you specifics and clarity on how this thing's going to go down. And somebody say, hey, I still want my 10K.
Yeah.
Okay, guys and girls, here I'm back now. Got the sun out of my eyes, got the phone call out of the way, and I hope everybody out there still wants their 10K because I'm still working on it for you. And right now we are going to go over what I had promised to you the other day. Once I go over this bill, HR 3807 for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund Plan and the Hard Hit Industries Award Program, I wanted to be able to go over it with you in detail, so that you will know exactly where you stand as far as maybe you can get a grant, or maybe you can get your EIDL loan forgiveness through this package, or whatever. But if you're in looking for money and you want to know how to get it, if it comes in, if it passes the Senate, now that could be another issue there. We know it's already passed the House. It passed the House with a pretty decent amount of votes. But the bill on the Senate side with Ben Cardin, now he's got a bill of his own, and it doesn't have this hard-hit small business bill in it. So they may end up separating the two out here, using the $42 billion and go ahead and passing that, and then working on this hard-hit industries if that gets passed. But hopefully it can go as is. If it does go as is, and say the Senate ends up pulling one of those late midnight, we're live at the Senate, and they do their voting without even the Republicans being there. If they've got the majority, or they've got the 50-50 split with the vice president, if they got the 50 votes and the vice president and the assigned piece of paper by the president, they could push this through without any Republican votes. However, that's unlikely to happen because of what happened last time with the Senate going through this and the House going through some bills without the Republicans being there. It didn't go over real well. But anyway, let's go ahead and go over this. It'll go into detail. It'll tell you who's going to be eligible, who's not going to be eligible, where does loan forgiveness play in this, and all of those things we're going to tackle on right here and try to give you some clarity of what's happening in this grant program. So let's go ahead and go to the 117th Congress, second session, HR 3807 Restaurant Revitalization Fund, Replenishment Act of 2021, and Hard Hit Industries Award Program. If we can say all that in one breath, we'll be doing well. Here we go. Down here at the bottom left, we want to thank Representative Blumenauer, Democrat of Oregon, who introduced this bill, and it was passed in Congress on the 11th of this month. Okay, here we are in Section 3, the Hard Hit Industries Award Program. We skipped Section 1 and 2. I went over that the other day with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which is looking like it's going to be set in stone. However, your PPP could be be involved there with, if you've gotten a PPP loan that was forgiven, they may consider that as a grant, or if you're going to use your documentation for the application that you supply them, they can also match that up with your PPP applications to make sure everything matches. So PPP does have something to do, your application at least does have something to do with your approval here. Okay, so here we are, the definitions. We're going to go over this. These are the definitions in Section 3 of this bill. Administrator. The term administrator means the administrator of the small business, which we all know is, we should know that's Isabel Guzman, the administrator. Whenever they say administrator, they're talking about Isabel Guzman. The affiliated business. The term affiliated business means the business in which an eligible entity, so say yourself, you're an affiliated business. Affiliated businesses A has an equity or right to receive not less than 50% of the profit distributions of such business. So you will have to be a business owner. You have to own the majority of the business. If you're a sole proprietor, that should be no problem. However, if you've got other people in your business that own shares, then you will have to make sure that the person owning this, the majority of it, is handling this unless somebody else has been given permission. Has on or before March 13th, 2020, contractual authority to control the business. And once again, if you've given authority over to somebody else to control the business, they have the right to go and make decisions for that owner of 50% or more. Award. The term award means financial assistance payment that an eligible applicant receives directly from the small business. So if you receive this grant or loan, that means you've been awarded. We go to number 4, covered period. The term covered period means the period beginning on February 15th, 2020 and ending on the latter of March 31st, 2023, a date to be determined by administrator that is not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this section. These are the eligible requirements. If to be an eligible entity, you have to have these requirements right here. It's pretty simple, 2 basic requirements. Let me go ahead and read this. The term eligible entity means a small business concern that employs not more than 200 employees, and 2, suffer pandemic-related revenue loss of 40% or greater. So that's pretty simple. If you have less than 200 employees in your business and you've suffered a 40% loss and you can prove these 2 things, then you're an eligible entity. Okay, so now we come to B, which does not include. If you've gotten any of these in your itinerary, or if this is you, then you are not eligible. 1, you're a state or local government operated business. 2, you have received a grant under one of these sections. If you received a grant under Section 324 of the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Business, Nonprofits and Venues Act of 15U, Universal State Code of 909A, or 2, Section 5003 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Now, that is not the EIDL loan program. This is for basically those that have already applied and received the grants in the first round, the 100,000 or such businesses that already received it. If you've received it once already, they're not letting you go ahead and say, okay, I want to get it again. So you're not double dipping there. Number 2, Section 5003 of the American Rescue Plan of 2021. 3, if you're a public traded company, you cannot. If your entity is owned or operated by a private equity fund, no good. Has a wage violation at the time of the application. So if you're in any of those categories there, you're not eligible for this grant. 6, eligible self-employed individual. The term self-employed individual has the meaning given in Section 7002 of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That's like a medical act anyway. Exchange issuer security. The term exchange issuer and security have meanings given in terms respectively of Section 3A, securities exchange. So it's basically saying any registered broker or dealer, if you're in stocks or whatever, you're permitted to designate as a representative such a natural person. Okay, pandemic-related revenue loss. In general, the term pandemic-related revenue loss means subject to subparagraph B and with respect to an eligible entity. 1, except as provided in clause 2 and 3, the average annual gross receipts during 2020 and 2021 as established using such verification documentation as the administrator may require of the eligible entity subtracted from the gross receipts of the eligible entity in 2019 if the sum is greater than 0. So basically your loss is what they're going to be looking for. And here's the calculator that they're going to be doing it. If the eligible entity was not in operation for the entirety of 2019, the difference between the product obtained by multiplying the average monthly gross receipts of the eligible entity in 2019 by 12. So you're going to find your average monthly gross receipts and the product obtained by multiplying the average monthly gross receipts to the eligible entity in 2020 and 2021 by 12, or an amount based on a formula determined by the administrator, or if the eligible entity began operations during the period beginning on January 1st, 2020 and ending on the day before the date of enactment of this section, on amount based on formula determined by the administrator. So it looks like here they're going to be making you divide your monthly pre-pandemic and then figuring out what it was making post-pandemic. They're going to find out if you got your 40% loss, and they're going to go ahead and fund you that money that you had lost in that time. And however, if the calculations can't seem to match or seem to fit right, or if you've been your business began in January 20th or January 1st of 2020, and you don't have the credentials to really determine what you would have made in 2019 or whatever, it looks like Guzman, the administrator, is going to be making a formula up for that in specifically. So I doubt it'll be as much, because now we're weighing maybes and maybes nots. Now we're not going by the facts, but we're going by a different amount of data. I'm not sure exactly how she's going to do that, but I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make that happen. They need to make it happen because that's what they say they're going to do. B, reduction. For purposes of this paragraph in the pandemic-related revenue, losses for an eligible entity calculated under subparagraph A shall be reduced by the sum of 1. Any amount received from a covered loan made by under paragraph 36 or 37, Section 7A of the Small Business Act, US 3636. So any amount you may have received in a loan, this is where it gets kind of, are we talking about forgiveness? Now, I wish they would just come right out and say it, but they're not just coming right out and saying it. They're saying if any amount received from a covered loan made under paragraph 36 and 37 of Section 7A, which is pretty much your COVID relief loans, the EIDL loans, if that was received under that, then that amount will be subtracted from what you were going to get. So say you were going to get a $100,000 grant from that, and you have already gotten a $120,000 loan. Now, are they going to be taking that $100,000 off of the loan? Therefore, you owing $20,000, or say you owed $80,000 and they're giving you $100,000. Will they only give you $20,000 and cover the loan? This is where it gets kind of tricky. Where this is where I'm saying they might have a little bit of EIDL loan forgiveness in here for those of you that would apply for this, having already received an EIDL loan, not grant. 2. Any amount received as a grant under Section 1110 of the Coronas Act Relief and Economic Security Act, U.S. Section 9009. Once again, we're looking at the another grant that was received, so that would be, once again, deducted. And here's where we go into the Section 331, which was the EIDL grant. 3. Any amount received as a grant under Section 331 of the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Business Nonprofits and Venues Act. Now, the Section 331 of the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Business Nonprofits and Venue is that different than the EIDL grant, because it was both in Section 331 was the section for the EIDL grant as well. So here we go again. This is where they're kind of steering us here. And I remember them. This is what really irritates me. I remember Congress and the Senate and during the presidential election of 2020, where they were saying you're going to get EIDL loan forgiveness, or you're going to get EIDL grant, you're going to get loans and this and that. And the next thing you know, they threw it out there, and the EIDL grant had a thing in it where a policy map was thrown in the mix of it, and nobody got the EIDL grant. Now, they could be playing the same game here because it's coming up election time. So here they want to throw out these little, this bait for people, this voting bait for saying, hey, if we get them in, they'll go ahead and forgive the EIDL grants or the forgiveness of the EIDL loans. It's the only way we can do it. $14 billion is not enough, or $12 billion, I'm sorry, is not enough to forgive the EIDL loans, first of all. And it would be enough to get the EIDL grants out there. Yes, that means that would be a deduction. Your EIDL grant would be used to pay off your EIDL loan if you had gotten one. That would go towards that. But here we are right now seeing a kind of a baiting, a voter's bait and I'm not going to fall for that, honestly, until this thing gets passed or whatever. But we've seen this play out once before, and it didn't play out into the favor of the small businesses that were in the yellow zone for the policy map, and many that were in the purple zone as well. So this is kind of a rough area to be looking at. It's encouraging, yes. It's encouraging if it could happen, and if they really wanted this to happen. But do they really want this to happen? Or did they just throw it in there for, once again, as we know, voters bait, which is what it's looking like to me. I mean, they're good at it. They're good at it. I mean, you start thinking, yeah, maybe the Democrats aren't so bad. And then you start thinking, well, so I don't know. That's your decision to make. I'm not here to push a vote one way or the other. I'm here to give you the specifics on these grants that they are saying you could get. C, percentage determination for the purposes of being the percentage of pandemic-related revenue loss under this section. The percentages shall be equal to 1. In case of an eligible entity for which subparagraph AI applies, the product obtained by multiplying 1. The quotient obtained by dividing the pandemic-related revenue losses for such eligible entities by the gross receipts of the eligible entity in 2019 and 100. They're going on the next one. 2. In case the eligible entity for which subparagraph A2I applies, the product obtained by multiplying the quotient obtained by dividing the pandemic-related revenue losses for such eligible entity by the product obtained by the multiplying the average monthly gross receipts of the eligible entity in 2019. You might want to pause that and go ahead and look at that and do your math on that. You can figure it out from there. As I'm saying, I don't have enough time to explain it all to you, so we're going to go to the next one. In the case of an eligible entity for which clause 2I or 3I applies, an amount based on the formula is determined by the administrator. So once again, we're seeing Isabel Guzman, the administrator, is going to be issuing the amount determined here. That's why their accurate calculations here are very kind of wavy right now as to what people are going to actually get from that right there. Kind of going through the 9, 10, and 11 just to show you what is on the bill of HR 3807 is payroll costs, private equity funds, and publicly traded company. But here I wanted to get to the next one, which is more important to the area that we're trying to touch on here. And that is number 12, the small business concern. The term small business concern has meaning given under Section 3 of the Small Business Act of 15 U.S.C. 632, includes individuals who operate under a sole proprietorship as an independent contractor or as a eligible self-employed individual, and B, small business concerns described in subparagraphs B, C, and D of Section 331B2 of the Small Business Act 15 U.S.C. Code 657A, B2. So here we go. We go into the Small Business Act definitions, and I wanted to bring you a closer look into this because it's kind of important here as far as if you're going to get the loan or the grant or not. So let's go ahead and go over this carefully. A Small Business Act definitions, the terms covered mortgage obligation, covered operations expenditure, covered rent obligations, supplier covered costs, covered utility payments, and covered worker protection expenditure have meanings given respectively in Section 7A of the Small Business Act 15 U.S.C. Code 636. Awards to eligible entities. Okay, here we go. 1, in general, from the amounts made available under this act, the administrator shall establish a program to be known as Hard Hit Industries Award Program, under which the administrator shall make awards to eligible businesses that submit an application under paragraph 2. 2, application and certification is in A. It says an eligible entity shall submit to the administrator an application for an award under this subsection. In such application, the eligible entity shall make good faith certification that 1, the uncertainty of current economic conditions makes necessary the award request to support the ongoing operations of the eligible entity. 2, the eligible entity has no pending application for and has not received a grant under Section 324 of the Economic Aid to Hard Hit Small Business Nonprofits Venues in Section 5003 of the American Rescue Plan of 2021. Once again, that's if you've already gotten this grant. They're not letting you get it again. B, verification. The administrator shall use tax records or other reliable sources such as certified accounting statements, also your PPP, remember that, with respect to an applicant for an award under this section. 1, the eligibility of the applicant for the award, and 2, the amount of the award to the applicant. Acceptance of applications. Not later than 120 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the administrator shall begin accepting applications for an award under this section. Priority is in D. In general, the administrator shall prioritize eligible entities that have experienced significant pandemic-related revenue loss to receive an award under this section as follows. First priority to eligible entities that experienced a pandemic-related revenue loss of at least 80%. Second priority to eligible entities that experienced a pandemic-related revenue loss of at least 60%. Smaller entities within each category of eligible entities described in subclauses through 3 and 1, the administrator may prioritize awards to eligible entities with 50 employees or fewer. Additional priority with each category of eligible entities described in subclauses through 3 and 1, the administrator may prioritize awards to eligible entities that did not receive a covered loan made under 36 or 37 of Section 7A of the Small Business Act. 3. Award amount, aggregate maximum amount. The aggregate maximum amount of awards made to eligible entity and affiliated businesses of eligible entities under this subsection may not exceed $1 million. Determination of award amount, in general, except as provided in this paragraph, the amount of an award made to an eligible entity under this subsection shall be equal to the pandemic-related revenue loss of the eligible entity. So they will give awards out based on what you've lost. So if you lost $100,000 up to $1 million, you could be awarded that much. Return to Treasury any amount of an award made under this subsection to an eligible entity described in clause of subsection 3AA that is greater than the average annual gross receipts of the eligible entity in 2020 and 2021 shall be returned to the Treasury. So if they gave you too much money, that's going to be drawn back. Insufficient funds. Now this is interesting. After selecting award recipients in accordance with paragraph 2D and before disbursing any awards under this section, if the administrator determines that amounts made available under this act for making awards under this section are insufficient to make awards to each eligible entity that submits an application under paragraph 2, in the amount described under subparagraphs A and B, the administrator may make awards with available amounts such that the amount of the award that each eligible entity would have otherwise received under those paragraphs and in accordance with paragraph 2D is reduced by percentage, except that the administrator may establish an aggregate maximum amount for awards made under this subparagraph and in accordance with the paragraph to ensure that smaller eligible entities receive awards in the amounts provided under these subparagraphs. And that makes sense. So where everybody gets something from it, it'd be basically dividing it up through. So say you were supposed to get 100,000, they're going to have to cut it to 10%. Now you're only going to get 10%, 10,000. Now, and this is going to make it so people can't cry and say, look, I didn't get nothing. Well, they gave you what they could. They've emptied the pot out, but they didn't miss you. You got something out of the deal, and there's no more to be said. Nobody's getting anything else. It's over. It's done. They've given all this money out. It's over and done. They're trying to wash their hands of this. Let's take the masks off and let's everybody, as soon as it's safe, and let's make sure everybody can move forward without increasing the national debt and screwing inflation up even more. So I get that, and I think it's a good plan. I do wish they would put a little bit more than $14 billion in there for this in particular. Tell me what you think down below. Now, this next part is what really struck me, was the use of the funds here. Because they normally would not come out and write this in there, and why is the paragraph there? I tried figuring it out left and right, and the only thing that I could come up with is, look, it's a sign, it's a signal to forgiveness. It's pointing towards forgiveness here. This could be a route that they're trying to take. If you have an EIDL loan, a route that they're trying to take for forgiveness. Now, we're going to read this carefully here. It's just one last paragraph. Use of funds during the covered period. An eligible entity that receives an award under this subsection may use the award for the following expenses incurred as a direct result or during the COVID-19 pandemic. And to me, I wrote that it looks like a recipe for EIDL loan forgiveness. I'm not going to go further. I'm not going to show you all of what it said, but basically it had the same exact requirements. So if you were filling out an EIDL grant, you were to use the money for this, or a PPP, you were to use the money for this, and it showed everything that you were going to be using the money for. The same thing that was shown in the PPP program, where you have to use it for payroll, this and that, and it was basically a copy and paste of the PPP recommendations for businesses to use to spend their money on. So with them doing all of that, and with them even putting that out there, that if you're using your money for this is what the grants are for. Now that was one of the last paragraphs that put in that section, and that was basically saying it's gonna basically give you an award for the money to cover all those expenses, loans and some blah 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 blah, everything. This is where I am wondering. They're trying to do this. They're trying to put it in there. They're putting it out there. They put it out there. They put it out there that they want to basically forgive. That's what the money will be used for. Forgiving those people who used it for those expenses. And if you can prove it, if you have it on paperwork, I suggest everybody out there keep track or go back and make a book better bookkeeping on what you're paying for and what your expenses are going to in your business. Keep accurate records of it. That way, if you can't get all of the loan forgiven, at least you could get some of it forgiven, some of that money that you have put out. Because, gosh, with this inflation, we can all use it. And with that said, I'm going to end this video. It's been a very long one. Hopefully, you guys have more understanding on how this thing's going to work. But the EIDL loan forgiveness was there. It was there in that piece. And in a couple pieces, it was there. As far as getting the grants and stuff like that for the CARES Act, it was there too. They just can't come out and say it. They're saying it without saying it, because you know how that gets in Congress, where no, well, we wouldn't let that pass. Why would we let this pass? Well, let's restructure it, we reword it, and see if we can get this to pass. Will it pass is the question. If it will, God bless you all. You're now ready for it. You know what to do to get in line for it, and hopefully this helps. Hopefully this serves you well in your move forward to getting those EIDL loans forgiven, to getting that RRF program, to your restaurant revitalization grants, and to getting those funds that you're needing for your business. That's what we're here for. It was a lot of stuff to swallow here. I hope you understood half of it. If you understood half of it, you're better off than you were a half an hour ago. So guys, once again, I ask that you like and subscribe. Click that notification button so when I get information out, you can get information in. Big shout out to my boy Jason McElhone. Happy birthday. Yesterday was his birthday. Thank you for all you do, brother. And guys out there, can one of us say, hey, I still want my 10K.
Somebody, give it to me. Somebody, give it to me. Somebody. Yeah. Somebody say, hey, we want a 10K. Yeah. Hey, we want a 10K. Yeah. Hey, we want a 10K. Yeah. Hey, we want a 10K. Give it to me. Me and my friends, we like to play this game. Some call us annoying, but we think it's a shame. All find time to chat and go live and get with the House and Senate on the phone and online. We even tweet the press where we feel like we're stuck on Bill S513.